Welcome to the halfway mark without Black Clover. First and foremost, I need to apologize to you guys for prolonging this video. I've been really sick and my students are heading into finals. Tomorrow is the last day of school, so I'm stressing out with them and I'm super busy getting ready for the summer, for coaching and all that stuff. But you guys don't care. But as you guys can probably tell in my voice, I am still not at 100%. I am still sick, so excuse any abrupt cuts in this video. But anyway, let's get into, finally, Lucius's master plan. What could it be? I don't know, but the series is sick as your boy, so let's get into it.
I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Pull up, say what's the deal, bruh? See how I lose my cool any second if they don't hear us. Many people will fear us. Say when you look in the mirror, don't you compare us to anything, they get embarrassed. Ha, woo. So many people be talking like they want the problems or something. I noticed that all of you polish and all of you people get punished. It's hard to keep food on your stomach, to all of the hustle keep running. That's hard to stay humble with nothing. We're off of the jungle, we're bugging. So let me come down all of a sudden. I told you that we keep it buzzing. Ha, woo. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out.
Yo, what's up everyone? It's your boy Jack Oates to GOAT. You either know or you don't. So today I want to talk about a thought I've been sitting on for a while regarding Devil Cores. As of right now, Lucius holds the core of Lucifero and wields Astaroth's power. While he may not necessarily have Astaroth's core, the power is all he really needs for this master plan to work. This means he's got the potential to use more than one devil attribute. Why would having multiple attributes be beneficial to anyone, though? Other than obviously being overpowered, what is the end game? We have had characters that have had multiple attributes, so why are these demonic attributes being sought after? Well, here's the theory. I find myself referencing this line more than I thought I would, but I have to stress, as I always do, because Tabata is a very intentional writer, and though that line may have come about as cringe, I think it may have been put there for the very reason I'm about to propose in this video. And here's the line. We can overrule reality. That's what magic does, right? This is exactly how magic is described in most lore. A blatant manipulation of reality via supernatural means. To get into this theory, I think it is massively important to understand a few concepts before full-on getting into the theory. The first concept being from Bleach, and most namely the Espada origin story. As many of us know, Tabata is a big fan of Bleach, so it wouldn't be crazy to think that he would incorporate some elements of the story to his own. One of my personal favorite arcs of Bleach was the part of the Espada arc where the origin stories were fleshed out. These beings all started out as spirits, which are deceased human souls, and from there, they become hollows through despair and regret. There are instances when hollows begin to eat many other hollows, and after so many have been consumed, the hollow in question becomes what's called a Menos Grande. These beings are flooded with different personalities of the consumed hollows, and in this stage, a dominant personality must come forth. This is where they attempt to regain their individuality. Again, they must consume hollows and like-class beings to transcend. Once individuality has been achieved, they evolve into an Ajuka where they regain consciousness and individuality, but they are driven by hunger because if they go hungry for too long, they will revert back to their previous form as a Menos Grande, in which all the other consumed personalities take over and that individual becomes lost. However, as an Ajuka, they must refrain from having even a chunk of their flesh taken out for them, or they will forever be in that state. If an Ajuka can consume enough of the other beings, they then reach the final stage in evolution, which Toshiro Hitsugaya says that only 10 beings have ever reached this height of evolution because of the sheer difficulty of this process. I picture the demonic condition in Black Clover in a similar way. I believe there are either a set amount of cores, or cores in Supreme Devils are rarely made due to a similar and very arduous process. Along with recent events, it wouldn't be a stretch to believe that cores can be stolen and used. This could be a massive shortcut through this process for a lower ranking devil to transcend. This does debunk the seemingly static power system that several devils have expressed within the series, though the static nature would still apply for those that just don't have the foundation or resolve to seek higher forms of existence, and might give us a case in which devils evolving is just a wildly rare occurrence. So rare that it is just not deemed as possible for one to achieve a higher state of being. The next concept to understand is the philosophy of the Emerald Tablets and the idea of the Halls of Amenti, where ancient Egyptians all the way up to current Christianity acknowledges that the physical realm is an illusion made up by archons to keep the soul trapped. There are several levels of ascension, and the closer to the end of this hall one gets spiritually, the closer you are to a reality of only truths. Things like the elements, every celestial microbial body, and even our own bodies are products of devils, but the spark of life within them that these vessels have belong to the true, invisible God that actually has very little to do with our current condition. This idea is really important because all of the Supreme Devils that we have seen have attributes that are readily found in the physical realm. To add something I haven't added to this thought before, even in Norse mythology, it is stated that gods are the reason for the physical realm. Just their very existence allows these things to exist. For example, Freya is the goddess of beauty, and they say without Freya, we would not know beauty. And although these gods lived vastly separate lives mostly away from humans, their presence allowed for these things to exist in the human world. So the idea here is that because these devils exist, their presence allows for these concepts to exist in the human world. This does not by any measure mean that they are spending every waking second providing the physical realm with these things. This only means that they are cosmic beings that have powers so vast that they affect cosmic bodies as a whole. This is how the men of the North viewed concepts in relations to gods. And as most of you should know by the Draconian Path playlist, and some other theories involving the night side of runes, we understand that the Gothic Kabbalah denotes some of these Norse gods as demonic beings. The very first paragraph of Dr. Carlson's Night Side of Runes describes Odin as the darkest demon in Norse mythos in relation to the Kabbalah. In context, we have the Klippat, which Dante refers to as a magic channel. This to me insinuates that it acts as more or less a stream of magic that flows in a certain direction. Given that both trees operate in a way that power is passed from the top to the bottom, this would mean that that stream of magic flows into the world of the living. For me, I interpret this to mean that the Klippat was constructed to take the attributes from the devil sealed inside in an effort to utilize their attributes to sustain what we know as the realm of the living, but to keep them as far away from that realm as they possibly can be. Who or whatever sealed these devils away may have understood one of two things, if not both, of what I'm about to say. Number one, they understood the value devils brought to the balance of the world of the living, and or number two, they understood that devils cannot truly be killed due to the existence of cores that sustain these attributes. This leads us to the spiciest portion of the video, Lucius's master plan. Again, I have to go back to Noel's line. We can overrule reality. That's what magic does, right? And the answer to this is absolutely. Not only is this the definition of magic, as I stated before, but this could mean if Lucius is able to get a hold of the attributes of space, time, and gravity, he can manipulate reality in the truest sense of the word. If one being could manipulate time, space, and gravity at will, then they control the very foundation of reality as they please. Right now, Lucius has time and possibly gravity at his disposal. I know what you may be thinking. Well, he doesn't have the spatial attribute from Beelzebub, and he just might have even that. In previous videos, I've discussed a couple of possibilities for what was then the mysterious Fourth Zogratis. One of the first ones was that he did not exist, which I still believe that he did not full-on exist as most characters do in this series, but that's a slightly larger topic that doesn't really suit this video. But do follow me on Twitter because I have multiple threads that explain exactly what I think on that subject. But it's not so much that he didn't exist at all, but rather it was Beelzebub himself causing confusion, as he is said to do in lore. And if this proceeds to be the case, then Lucius would have all three things that the underworld is ruled by, and this is what will separate him from any other antagonist, also including the fact that he is more than likely the series' Antichrist, the one who will bring hell to Earth. With these attributes at his disposal, he is virtually unstoppable, until he is met with anti-magic, that is. But let's take a sharp left turn here. With Lucius potentially being the embodiment of Astaroth and Beelzebub, this means that this character is 2 out of 3 infernal rulers, with the third infernal ruler's heart in hand. But let's talk a bit about lore really quick. In Milton's Paradise Lost, a depiction of the angels falling from grace is described. Milton, in a good amount of detail, describes when each fallen angel awakens from their fall and what their personalities are like. I know I am mentioning Beelzebub a lot lately, and especially in this video, and it is because Beelzebub is the one who truly runs hell. Beelzebub is known for his absolute loyalty to Lucifer. When Lucifer finally awoke from his fall in Paradise Lost, Beelzebub literally opens a portal into the realm outside of the Clip-On. This realm is known as Chaos. We have talked about why this is important to Asta and Liebe on this channel before, but briefly. The power of chaos is both creation and destruction. Everything, whether living or non-living, is sent back to chaos, and everything is birthed from chaos. Liebe seems to be the aspect of chaos that embodies complete and total annihilation, and can prove to be, well, we'll get into that later. We jumped the gun just a bit there, but you'll see why this is important in just a second. Once Lucifer took his leave into the outer realm of Clip-On, it was not Beelzebub who was left in charge, but instead, it was Satan. Satan was described by Milton as being excessively prideful and irrational. During Hell's meeting where they discussed the future of Hell and how they would get back at God and the angels, Beelzebub did his best to talk Satan down from warring with the forces of heaven again. Not only were their powers affected by the fall, but even at their best, they didn't succeed. So Beelzebub was very right in his reasoning, but Satan was only hell-bent on revenge. Eventually, Beelzebub staged a successful revolt against Satan, which meant that he was the supreme ruler of hell. Think about what we just saw here in Black Clover for a minute. With the exchange of Xenon's soul, Beelzebub gains life, and through Astaroth's effort of attaining a body, he was able to store that life within the body to manifest. We already know that Lucius/Astaroth directly interfered with time to ensure that the team would win their bout against Lucifero, otherwise known as Satan. While Lucifero may not have been the smartest devil in existence, he was undeniably powerful. If Beelzebub ever went toe-to-toe with him, it would ultimately go in Lucifero's favor. If Astaroth matched up against him, it would be a wash. See, with gravity versus space, gravity can literally bend and warp space as we see here in real life. Gravity versus time is an entirely futile battle, as gravity more or less dictates what time does. The more gravity there is, the more time that can be dilated. The less gravity, the slower time moves. There are even observations made with neutron stars where there can be so much gravity that causes and effects get distorted entirely. So Lucius was able to manipulate the situation in a way that neither Astaroth or Beelzebub needed to move full front against Lucifero, and instead was able to use anti-magic as their tool, much as the Witch Queen had hoped to do with Asta. With him gone, nothing stands in their way except anti-magic, but again, we'll get there soon. Back to the lore. There's a passage in which King Solomon asks Beelzebub a question. He asks, "Why are you alone, Prince of Demons?" In which Beelzebub replies, "Because I am the only one left of the heavenly angels who fell. I was the highest ranking angel in heaven, the one they called Beelzebub." We have to remember that Beelzebub's lore coincides with the lore of Baal, which is also the ruler of the fourth Clobotic sphere after Adramelech. This means he was worshipped as a god of war, cataclysms, and worship of demons through tyrants. It's possible that these devils gain power through not only souls, but through prayer as well. It is said that a god ceases to be a god once they require a sacrifice. Up until then, they receive prayers as power. This fuels the thought that gods exist because man allows them to exist. Once they make that shift into a demon that requires sacrifice, then they are, of course, demons. I mention this because elves pre-Lit were said to use ley lines to manipulate weather and cause disasters. While Beelzebub has not been mentioned in the same breath of ley lines are paths of earth energy, and Beelzebub is said to be the king of earth, or an earthly spirit as Cornelius Agrippa frames it. With the triad in play, these are a group of tyrants who used devils to meet an end and ultimately incited one of the biggest wars of all time. This is all falling into the realm of Beelzebub. These mixed in with Beelzebub fueling Xenon's darker image of himself, it seems as though Beelzebub has been playing in the background for quite some time, most likely in an effort to successfully descend into a physical body capable of suiting his power, an undying body. Back to lore. We must remember that the Tree of Life operates the exact same way as the Tree of Death does at a fundamental level. I say that because in the videos on how the Sephiroth and Clipout work, I tell you guys that when looking at the Sephiroth, Keter is the highest point on the tree, but Keter is not the highest being. Instead, Keter is a more physical face of what is above, which is the true God. The true God exists outside of the tree. On the Tree of Life, this is depicted as the three negative veils above Keter, known as the Ein Safar. This translates to the limitless light. Here, God exists in three forms but acts as one. This is also within the realm of chaos, but creative chaos. And just as it is depicted in almost any religious source, as above, so below. Though the Thamael is the lowest point on the Clipot, this by no means indicates that Satan and Moloch are the gods of the underworld. Instead, there is what is called the three veils below Satan. This is the antithesis of the Ein Safar, and chaos in its most destructive form. This god is known as none other than Lucifer. Lucifer, before his fall, was an angel of light. After his fall, he became a dark god known for his negative light. There are passages even in Bibles today that directly state that Lucifer is the god of earth. One of my favorites is when he offers Jesus earth in exchange for his soul. Though Jesus declines, this quite clearly indicates that Lucifer does in fact have ownership of the world. Now that I've said all this, you may be asking yourself, well, if Satan wasn't the biggest devil we had to worry about, then who exactly is? And though it has been one of my most unpopular theories, I still believe that Liebe is the god of the underworld. Liebe is Lucifer. With his anti-magic power, it seems as though it fits the scheme of chaos in its most destructive form. To add to this, I've made a thread and one video explaining how it is the mage's goal to reach Moloch and Satan, but the importance of Moloch is that he will create an entirely new universe for the mage to rule, or you will be sent back into the reincarnation cycle with the powers you've attained and will have the option to stay in the universe that you have transcended until you feel ready to move on. From there, it's said that the mage must reach the womb of the abyss. They are reborn from void. This does seem to depict Asta in the sense that Lucida should have been barren. Why mention Asta? Because there are 2 to 3 noted parts of existence: the body and soul, or body, soul, and spirit. Much like in Egyptian lore, it does seem that Black Clover is within the realm of having gods, more or less, seeking out people to be their avatars so that they may deal directly with the physical realm. There just may be a final third element that is needed for this to happen to create a perfect body. We're reaching the height of the video, and in just a bit I'm going to reveal my thoughts on a few things. Number 1, Lucius and the Devil's plans. 2, assembling the Knightly Order of the Fly. And 3, redefining what good and evil is. Let's start with the plan. We already discussed that Lucius may be able to freely manipulate reality as they know it if Lucius does in fact have the top 3 Devil's attributes of space, time, and gravity. In the presence of these, as we have already seen, resistance is almost futile. Aside from the ability to manipulate reality as we know it, it is also possible that Lucius can embody all 3 of the Zogratis attributes. This would provide the twist that Lucius separated his soul into the Jungian archetypes of the anima, which is Vanica, persona as Dante, and the self as Xenon, hence why they look so much alike in comparison to the other siblings, while Lucius himself became the shadow self. It's tough to say whether this is or will be the case, but one of the goals of magic is successfully separating the soul from the body without dying. But I think the next phase here will be collecting the last thing they would need to have full control of everything. While controlling reality is already an overwhelming ability, to secure their spot in that world, they would need control over one more thing: fate. I can see at some point in the future, our protagonists may seek out the Witch Queen for assistance. They may realize that this is an uphill battle and the only thing that can really rival reality manipulation directly is fate, and of course we know the Witch Queen has been trying to get her hands on the means to manipulate it, but at this end, we don't know exactly how the Witch Queen planned to use that force to her advantage, but it seems fairly obvious that she had more than an idea of how she wanted to use these powers. This could be one of the first big fights for Lucius, if he doesn't already have some type of partnership with her already. Lucius does not seem like the kind of guy to plan so much out to get to this point and not have any more tricks up his sleeve. In this light, I envision our protagonists with Gray and Vanessa seeking out the Witch Queen to help use their fate abilities. However, this would be more of a long con, as the pieces the Witch Queen has been looking for will willingly come to her. The best and most effective plans hardly ever require force. Lucius was able to overthrow Satan and an entire continent by using the abilities of others and triggering certain events to happen that would lead to others to willingly work for him without even being aware of it. In a Jack Clover sense, I would write this out in a way that they find themselves between a rock and a hard place and find out the hard way that Lucius and the Witch Queen have known each other for a long time, if not, shipped together, if you will. But I'm not a shipper, who knows? She was so against Vanessa liking a human male, and Lucius is much more than that. The point of this from an aspect of pure storytelling would be to spread our protagonist group as thin as possible to where they get to a point of hopelessness. Meanwhile, Lucius could very well instigate a witch hunt of sorts and in Zagrid-like fashion only feed into the already existing lust for power and money and have people fight for their spot in the hierarchy and only decapitate the higher most focal points of authority within the capital and replace them with none other than devils. But these devils won't be in full form. I believe for the first part of his reign, he will be attempting to assemble the Knightly Order of the Fly. What this would look like could vary. If you all remember, Tabata dropped a picture of Magicula in human form for no real reason. It seems like the best plan of action to summon these devils would be through a ritual like we see the Foss do. With some alterations, I don't see why Lucius wouldn't be able to summon these devils and somehow make it so that their outer forms are human, not to cause any suspicion among the people, as these devils would also then be some of the new political figureheads as well that will help Lucius run everything. These will be the Mavro or Black Gods as seen in Hungry Joker. But summoning these devils into human form isn't the only plan. There more than likely is and will be something greater than that. So let's say Lucius gains power over reality, fate, and bodies. This would make him unstoppable. This means he could remake reality entirely from top to bottom. A world of those with undying bodies. But why? Back to the lore. See, after the Fallen had, fallen, the idea was to get back at the forces of heaven, but there were issues with this. If the forces of heaven cannot be beaten with their current forces at full strength, how in the literal hell would they combat them at anything less than that? Well, before Lucifer left the underworld, he made his intentions very clear. Instead of getting back at God directly, he would meddle with his precious creations, the humans. This is the more interesting part. Beelzebub opens a portal into chaos, which I tend to view as the realm of gods, as that's where the light god dwells, otherwise known as the Ein Safar. There is no way Beelzebub would deviate from Lucifer's plan in any way whatsoever. When I say Beelzebub is loyal, I mean it's hard to find actual angels with this type of loyalty. So why did Lucifer want to meddle with humans? Contrary to popular belief, the reason is not out of jealousy or any type of spite towards humans themselves. The point is that humans were as they are portrayed in the series, a perfect intermediary force in the universe that can embody both good and evil or the extreme of either. Once Beelzebub seized control of the underworld, the plan was to move the battlefield between heaven and hell to earth. Now, as far as my research has gone, they never explicitly state why moving the battlefield to earth is a good idea, but I can only assume why. It definitely makes sense for our series. If we look at the benefit of devils in human bodies, they have multiple attributes. The ability to push beyond their limits and become stronger, and the grimoires allow for more complex spells, as we see with Dante using singularities, and Lucifero never using even one. Now, getting them a host that would willingly give up their soul would give them an opportunity to have a body that never dies. Okay, shut up! What's the point, Jack? My bad. I just like painting the picture. See, if they move the battlefield to Earth, the point is not to kill or even torture humans. Just control them. Manipulate them into thinking about things through their eyes. If they can manage to get humans to believe that angels and gods are bad, they will have effectively amassed an entirely new addition to their army. An army that does not bend solely to or for God's will. An army that, when banded together, can take down even the most daunting forces of the universe, as we have seen throughout the Spade arc. Mixed with the highest-ranking devils of the Clipbot and Undying Bodies, this could prove to be an uphill battle for even forces like angels. But before we do any of this, the Order of the Fly will need to be complete. The Order of the Fly is something that I feel like most people know about, and when we think of it, we automatically think that Beelzebub runs it. But we actually know very little about the Order, and that in and of itself is scary considering the depth of our knowledge of most things above and below. This means it's been a fairly well-kept secret, which is the point. Beelzebub assembled only demons that he could wholly trust, which is not an easy task. So whatever things they have delegated within their ranks are a complete mystery. While Beelzebub is the figurehead of the Knightly Order of the Fly, he is not the highest demon in it. It is actually Lucifer. It's just massively difficult to run something while you are literally not even in hell. See, when Lucifer said he was going to meddle with God's creations, I believe he meant that he was going to do it the way God does it. God does not exist within the tree, so why would Lucifer stay inside of it? All of the control comes from above the trees. And from there is the ability to come to earth inside of a vessel. This is the goal of the Aeonic beings. They must descend into what would be classified as a kenoma, one devoid of God's light. Reason being is that they are beings that have massive amounts of energy. If they descend into a being that is already full of God's light, to whatever capacity, the vessel will break. From being the kenoma, this being would become the pleroma. This is known as the fullness of God. Jesus was one of these. Why do I even say all of this, though? Because who do we know that would be considered empty? Not that he's empty anymore, because he's been filled by a force that completes him. That's right, Asta. Toward the height of their plan, I believe that they will want either Asta or Liebe, if not both together, because they would be Lucifer. Adramelech witnessed the power of anti-magic firsthand. Instead of killing Asta in a very vulnerable moment, he kept him alive. This could also have been solely due to his orders through Lucius, but even still, Lucius has known about the powers of anti-magic this entire time. Knowing it could be the downfall of any plan, why would he keep Asta alive after achieving what he wanted? Because we don't kill friends. Asta's true identity and purpose will be revealed through Lucius. Asta can use the knowledge of merit and the experience he's gathered from the good people to influence the way things are. But in the end, the majority of these devils can't be trusted and will continue to do awful things because they can. In this scenario, Asta will have to make the ultimate sacrifice. Unfortunately, that's the name of the next video, so I'll have to end that particular thought right there. What else could Lucius bring to the kingdom? We could see some lines fade from the boundaries of ethics and morals. A complete blur of what is right or wrong. This could look like chaos, but only at the start. There's a reason why the Triad said the things they said. This is the collective idea of what Lucius has been aiming for the whole time. There will be a weeding out of the weak and the strong. Disparity between what people think is right versus what some believe are wrong. Not necessarily a world crawling with all different types of unbridled malice, but different clashes of perspectives. Something a lot of you have heard me say either on here or on Twitter is that there are points when good is so good that it serves the purpose of evil, and there's evil that can be so evil that it serves the purpose of good. I propose this because Tabata has taken after Kentaro Miura's Berserk, where the philosophical statement is made where evil doesn't necessarily have to define the characteristic of a given person or group, and good doesn't necessarily have to define the characteristic of a person or group. However, both good and evil can be used as the vehicle to get to desired goal. While the goal itself can be good or evil in nature, the means to getting there can be a blur of the two. Redefining these lines in the series will cause our protagonists to question their own moral and ethical guidelines, and maybe even readjust them ever so slightly. One last point I will make is that when it comes to devils, texts have been written and rewritten various times, and while there are devils like Beelzebub, Belial, Lucifer, and Satan, known to be masters of lying, devils are known to tell truths and information. Outright lies are actually very few and far between, but there's also the consideration of omitted truths. Thing is, for the most part, devils have nothing left to lose, so the truth always tends to come out, no matter how harsh it is. There are truths so profound that they can be detrimental to our world and self-view. If what we think is right is proven to be wrong altogether, it could damage the very foundation of who we are at our core. I know a lot of this is really wild, but I do suggest that you give this more than one listen. There is lore to back up all of these ideas. I also suggest to look back on some of the videos I have already done, because we have been through a lot of this subject material in much more depth, and it'll give you a deeper understanding of this and how I arrived at this conclusion. But in short, Lucius would have the power of reality, fate, and bodies, and will seek out Asta and or Liebe to complete the Nightly Order of the Fly. There are 7 more weeks left in this wait for the next chapter of Black Clover. I will still be dropping videos to supplement some ideas and also provide some other things to think about as we wait for the next chapter. This has been Jack Oats to Go. Thank you guys for tuning in so much. I'll see you in the next video. You either know or you don't.